United States constitutional principles established by the Wong Kim Ark case, reaffirmed in the 1980s by another case that says the ancient principle, establishes that ancient principle of birthright citizenship in the United States. You're born on American soil. You're not subject to a foreign power over you. You are an American, period. That was reestablished in a case that's oft-cited in civil rights circles as U.S. versus Wong Kim Ark. I'm going to talk about the 14th Amendment. I'm going to talk about Wong Kim Ark, and I'm going to talk about why Tom Homan and Donald Trump's policies are unconstitutional and will end up before the United States Supreme Court in 2025, and I believe they'll be on the losing end. What are they trying to do from a policy standpoint that's against the Wong Kim Ark and 14th Amendment ancient principles of our country and children born in this country from their parents who are maybe undocumented? Tom Homan did it once in the 2016-2020 period when he was the head of ICE in America. He's going to be the head of ICE this time, but when he was in 2016 to 2020 for Donald Trump, Tom Homan had, I think, about 4,000 children who were separated from their parents, some of which were put in cages, we now know infamously. And he's threatening to do it again. He says he needs $86 billion in the first 100 days in order to deport these people. And now he's gotten even more brazen and more bold, where he said to the Washington Post that it is the fault of the undocumented parents. They should have known better when they had a child on American soil that this could have happened, that they would be separated from him. Think about the heartlessness around that particular policy in trying to blame them. He said, quote, you know when you're illegal and when you have a child in this country that you're putting them at risk, that's your fault. This is the same guy who's threatened sanctuary city mayors to jail them. We get to a constitutional crisis, Legal AF and the Midas Touch Network. Now, let me go back to the case and why under the 14th Amendment it says what it says and why it says what it says. 14th Amendment, the Citizenship Clause says that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to its jurisdiction or the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. Pretty straightforward. Where did it come from? Came from our post-Civil War era, when the newly freed slaves, now Black Americans, needed to have their citizenship reestablished, reaffirmed in the Constitution, because a prior immoral constitutional decision called Dred Scott, which is one of the, if not the stain on our American jurisprudence, it is one of these stains, written by Justice Taney, said that blacks are not citizens of the United States. So they needed to come up with a constitutional amendment that was passed. If you watched the movie Lincoln, you watched a number of these amendments being passed in real time in that particular movie. The 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment, the 16th Amendment, these are all the post-Civil War Reconstruction amendments, mainly addressed at making sure that the rebel southern states didn't continue to abuse now newly freed Black Americans. So that's the 14th Amendment. In 1898, it all came to a head in the prevailing jurisprudence in this area called U.S. versus Wong Kim Ark. That's why I said at the top of this particular hot take, do you know who that is? Because Tom Homan doesn't. Here's what the ruling was in that case. That was a Chinese American, a boy who was born on American soil to Chinese parents. We're not going to get into undocumented versus documented, but they were still citizens of China, and as this case recites, they were subject to the Emperor of China at the time. But the child was born here in America. When he was 21, he left. When he came back in, he was stopped by whatever version of border control they had in 1898 and was told that he was not allowed back into the country. He said, but I'm an American citizen. I was born here, and I'm under the 14th Amendment. And there was a whole big fight finally decided by the United States Supreme Court. Now, here's what they said. Just listen to these words, because that will help you understand how wrong Tom Homan and how wrong Donald Trump are. Here's what they said in the case. The 14th Amendment affirms the ancient and fundamental rule of citizenship by birth within the territory, in the allegiance and under the protection of the country. including all children here born of resident aliens, with the exceptions or qualifications as old as the rule itself of children of foreign sovereigns or their ministers, or born on foreign public ships or of enemies within and during a hostile occupation of part of our country. Now, some people, I'll stop there. Some people only say, well, these were not resident aliens. Well, they're not using the term as documented versus undocumented. They're just saying it's somebody who lives in the country, like the undocumented, who is not a citizen, an alien. So I don't want everybody to start jumping up and down. Pobok! They're not resident aliens, these parents. They're undocumented. That's not the way this case turns. This is the United States Supreme Court, 1898. The amendment, 14th Amendment, in clear words and in manifest intent, includes the children born within the territory of the United States or all other persons of whatever race or color domiciled within the United States. Every citizen or subject of another country, while domiciled here, is within the allegiance and the protection and consequently subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. See, that's another argument by MAGA. They say, well, these people that are born are not subject to the jurisdiction thereof because their parents are undocumented. No, that is complete nonsense. To contrast it with foreign diplomats who can thumb their nose. This is why they can get $1 million worth of parking tickets. Nobody cares when they're diplomats because they have diplomatic immunity. These people, undocumented, obviously don't have diplomatic immunity. They barely have any dignity of status as it is. So forget that argument, although you hear it a lot in the MAGA world. To hold that the 14th Amendment of the Constitution excludes from citizenship the children born in the United States or of citizens or subjects of other countries would be to deny citizenship to thousands of persons of English, Scotch, Irish, German, and other European parentage who have always been considered and treated as citizens of the United States. See, it's not just white person privilege. They were applying it here for this Chinese American. Justice Gray, who wrote for the court, that emphasized that Congress cannot affect U.S. citizenship acquired under the Constitution. And that's an important distinction here because no other branch, the executive branch, can't about that. Congress having no power to abridge the rights conferred by the Constitution upon those who have become naturalized citizens by virtue of acts of Congress, a fortiori, to no act or admission of Congress as to providing for the naturalization of parents or children of a particular race can affect citizenship acquired as a birthright. That's why we call it birthright citizenship. It is bestowed on you by birth on American soil. Place under him. Let's face it, after Donald Trump talks a lot about ending birthright citizenship, and I'm here to tell you he cannot. It is in our Constitution. Unless there is a constitutional amendment approved by 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate, and 2/3 of the United States, the states of America, it's not happening. And we'll never get to 2/3 on that issue. Or what side of the political aisle you're on now, go look at your family tree and tell me how much of it is dependent on somebody having been born in this country and given the blue passport, right? And your success and your fortunes and how your life would have changed, right? I've met people who have gone through a dignified immigration policy primarily before 1980 in the United States, who got their green cards in the mail from their home country and then came in and became hardworking business owners, entrepreneurs, taxpayers, civil servants, teachers, doctors, business owners, and the like, lawyers, judges. And then there's this other group that come here because of economic crisis in their own countries, because drug cartels are ready to slit their throats or their children's throats on the way to school, and they want a better life the way that both my grandfathers wanted a better life after being chased by Cossacks and Nazis in Germany and in Europe. And they came to this country. We should be a bigger group of people and recognize the value that they are making to our society. Supermarket. Say goodbye to a lot of your chicken, poultry, a lot of your factories that manufacture, construction,